warbeck. From the field there comes the breath of human hay.
That's our theme song. Good evening and welcome to Hoosier Storytellers, a program for and about the people of Frankfort and Clinton County. I'm your host, Mike Clossin. I'm the outreach librarian here at Frankfort Community Public Library. Today we'll be discussing the Frankfort Hot Dog Hall of Fame. We'll hear about the history and goals of the Hall of Fame from that guy, Board President Don Rusk. Hall of Fame board member Craig Mundell will tell us about the Hot Dog Alumni Golf Outing and Reception, which will be held tomorrow at the Frankfort Commons Golf Course. And we'll hear a little bit about the lives and achievements of two new inductees into the Hall of Fame. Professor of History at Slippery Rock University, Dr. Tom Pearcy, and longtime music teacher at Frankfort High School, Janet Priest. The program tonight will last just about an hour, including some time for your questions, if you have any, towards the end of the hour. So let's welcome back Don and Craig, and welcome to Hoosier Storytellers, Tom and Janet. I was really hoping everyone would applaud there because it covers up the sound of my knees cracking when I sit down. Don Rusk, you've been president of the Hall of Fame Board of Directors for several years now. I'm sure that many people don't realize there is an actual Hall of Fame. So could you tell us a little bit about where it is? And talk about, at this point, how many inductees do you have in the Hall of Fame?
Mike, right now, first it's located in the main hallway outside the auditorium is where all the plaques are located.
At the high school? At
the high school, yes. And right now, prior to this year, we had 61 inductees to date. And we have 4 more and an honorary for this year. So we'll be at 65, if my math holds up.
4 more and a
honorary
special recognition.
Special recognition.
So we've had several of these induction ceremonies now. I just wondered if there have been any moments over, how many is this anyway?
Our first induction was in 2018.
Okay.
So this will be our 8th year.
Okay.
It actually, just a brief history is we started in probably 2017. A group got together, primarily started with Don Stock and John Milholland. Was approached, they started talking, and it was going to be a basketball Hall of Fame. And so they started getting a few people together, and then it became a sports Hall of Fame. And more people came in, our board kind of got finalized, and through 2017, we all realized that neither fit our bill. What we really needed was recognition for graduates and honoraries, and we need a Hall of Fame that covered all aspects of the achievements that our graduates have made. And so that's how we started. That first year, we had a large class. It was a class of 15. And it was kind of a matter of getting it off the ground. As I remember our board, it was a real struggle because it was us trying to pick that first 15 because we really hadn't received nominations, and that's what we've been building on ever since. So it was a task of trying to, what we thought, catch up, get those people that Everett Case, I'll use that name, that stood out that we needed to recognize that very first year. And so the process has been going since 2018 now.
You know, if you'd have left it just at basketball, I'd have probably had my picture hanging out there.
It probably, we just couldn't figure out what restroom to hang it in.
Well, I'll ask Don and Craig this question in case one of you doesn't have an answer, maybe the other one will. Has there, or when were you most surprised by an inductee? One of the things I've noticed at all of the Hall of Fame things is there's always, it seems like somebody every year that comes out of nowhere and you're like, wait, this person's from Frankfort and they did all that and I'm shocked. Anything come to mind, gentlemen?
Go, Craig.
Well, there's been so many great stories, it's hard to really just pinpoint one, but a lot of them are a real surprise when they come across the nomination forms, because a lot of these people, you've got to have somebody that nominates them or recommends them, because the really successful people like Tom and Janet, for an example, they're not out there tooting their own horn. They're very humble people, and it's been great just sitting in the rooms listening to these stories about how they've gone from a Frankfort High School graduate onto an extraordinary career.
I have to agree. And unfortunately, when you get as old as I am, and Mike's always complaining about how old he is, and I keep telling him it's going to get worse. But I can't come up with a name until about midnight when I roll over in bed. And I can't come up with the gentleman's name, but he was the pilot for the President's Air Force One. And I'm going, and that's a graduate from Frankfort, and certainly was. And that aspect of it, I think, was very surprising. But Craig hit it on the nail when he said, every year we go, that person did this kind of thing, as we said in a board. And it's names that we don't know, and it's surprising and greatly rewarding to hear about it.
Craig, tell us a little bit about the origin of the golf scramble that's happening tomorrow, and what exactly is going on at the Frankfort Commons golf course tomorrow.
Well, this, as Don reiterated earlier, when we first started off, you know, we wanted to put on a quality program, honor everybody, didn't really have the funding to do it. We had some board members and some businesses that were very generous to get us off the ground. And then at one of our meetings, Coach John Milholland suggested that we have a golf outing. This was probably about 4 years in. And for better or worse, he looked at me and said, "You're in charge." So here I am. But anyway, we started off our very first year. This will be the 5th Hot Dog Hall of Fame scramble. The first year we had 136 players, which was excellent. We've had tremendous support from our donors who have given money to be a whole sponsor, whether it be a business or an individual. So that has really helped us get this off the ground. And not only are we able to continue doing a good program for the honorees, but we have now been able to give back to some programs that the high school needs some help on. As an example, maybe give some money to the band so they could compete in the state band championships, or begin an esports program. Things like that. We ask every year, what's something that you really need to help the student experience in their education?
So a golf event is very weather dependent. How are you feeling about tomorrow? Someone said it might be hot.
Well, Thankfully, we have a few Hall of Fame doctors that will be participating tomorrow, so I'm hoping they can give some good tips, but I think it's going to be drink a lot of water, stay in the shade, and play quickly.
This Saturday, the Hot Dog Hall of Fame will induct 4 new members, and they'll recognize, they'll have a special recognition award, which will be the 5th one. We have 2 people here who are 2 of the inductees, and we're going to let them talk now so you 2 can relax. I'll get back to you later. Dr. Tom Pearcy is a 1979 graduate of Frankfort High School. He earned a master's degree in American history from Purdue University and was awarded a PhD in Latin American history from the University of Miami, Coral Gables. In 1993, Tom was accepted as a professor of history at Slippery Rock University in Pennsylvania, where he still teaches today. Please welcome Dr. Tom Pearcy.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I need to make one historical correction. I began my career in 1991 at Brigham Young University and did all of the things that normal university professors do, boring, write books, teach classes. And then in 1996, I received a note from Senator Bob Bennett, which was a little bit unusual. And he congratulated me for receiving a senior Fulbright scholarship from the State Department. I had not applied for a senior. I'm not good with paperwork.
Hey, Tom, hold that mic a little closer.
Anyway, so it was my honor as a senior Fulbright scholar to leave BYU for a while and go down to Panama, where I taught graduate seminars on U.S. foreign policy. I was able to get shot at and tear gassed and all of those things, which I recommend from a distance. But I had really a turning point in my career was when Ambassador William Hughes asked me to brief him and his consular officers on the implications of the pending canal treaties. And so I briefed them. And afterwards, he asked me, Dr. Pearcy, why do Panamanians hate us? And I was a little dumbfounded. Ambassadors are political appointments, so I left that alone. He wasn't aware of history. But I said, give me a month, and I'll go and find out. And I literally, my wife and our children and I traveled around the Republic of Panama, and I lectured at each place, met scholars that I'd read and learned from so much, made friends, but I went into their libraries. I wanted to know what it was that they were reading about my country. And literally everything that I found was published in Havana or Moscow. So I reported back to the consular officers and the cultural attaché, who was my boss and who said if I got arrested, she would claim that she didn't know me. But I told them, one of the reasons they don't like us is because they don't know us. And so he gave me the responsibility of locating the best U.S. history textbooks available in any language, getting them into Spanish, and donating them to the university. And we did that. At the time, George Tyndall's book, American History, on American History, was the most widely used textbook in the English-speaking world. And our tax dollars in action, the State Department made a very large donation to the University of Panama. I go back to Provo, teach at BYU, direct their Latin America Studies program, and really grow tired of classes with 900 students and 10 teaching assistants in one auditorium. That's not really the way I'm wired. So Little Slippery Rock offered me a job in 1998, and there I went. That was a little closer to Washington, and I hadn't really thought of the implications of proximity. But I received the Fulbright grant because the government of Panama had requested me by name. I had not applied. Literally, the Ministry of the Interior had asked for me by name because of my work in their archives. They know that I love them and respect them. Then the State Department got cute and decided that they needed a gringo to dangle in front of people who don't like gringos. I've written U.S. history textbooks, Central American history textbooks. I know the topic relatively well, and I can speak Spanish like I speak English. So they said, we want you to fly to Managua. We've got the same problem in Managua that we have had in Panama. You know, people don't like us, and we want to know why. So they set me up to teach a graduate seminar to send in east to party officials at the Universidad Nacional de Nicaragua, which is a hotbed of antipathy for people who look like us, right? Who speak with a gringo accent. And I did it. And the first few days were a little difficult, but by the end of the seminar, we were having dinner together. They were regaling me with stories about Fidel Castro and flights back and forth. And I returned a second time to Managua to do the same thing. And while I was in Nicaragua, I did the same thing that we had done in Panama. I went around to all of the university libraries. I wanted to know what the teachers, what materials our teachers had, and how they were instructing, what they were telling the kids, their students about us. And we did the same thing. The State Department made a big donation. Then somehow the CIA gets involved. And in 2003, the Central Intelligence Agency asked me to chair a session at Foggy Bottom at State Department headquarters where we were releasing 10,000 previously classified materials. And it was a very uncomfortable situation. I'm sitting there. To my right is the ambassador of Panama. To my left is Brian Littell, who's brilliant. But Littell got up and did a mea culpa. He said, well, Mr. Ambassador, here's what we did. And we used piano wire and we assassinated. And I'm looking at the ambassador saying, I do not know this guy. Afterward, the ambassador actually thanked me for insisting that the people of the country be included in their history. I made quite a fuss about that. That, in turn, resulted in me getting appointed joint historian for the United States government. And I worked concomitantly for the Central Intelligence Agency and the FBI. Abraham Lincoln, in 1865, had issued an executive order demanding that American diplomats maintain a thorough and accurate record of our nation's interactions with other countries. And we're the only country in the world that does that. But turns out that the State Department discovered that the CIA didn't always play nicely. So Congress created this position called joint historian. And they both vehemently did not like the other side. The language that was used warning me, they are, and then fill in the blank, be careful when you go out there. It was hilarious. But my job was to ensure I had to have, the agency could not deny me clearance. I had to have any clearance to go anywhere in the world, compartmented information, continuity of government types of things. So I am the first person, the only person, I believe, since the agency was established in 1947 to have that access. And that has led to a variety of other situations. But I will say it was the honor of a lifetime to serve the country, our country in that way. Something happened in El Salvador that I disagreed with, and I resigned and went back to my day job. And I absolutely love teaching university students about the history of our country.
My first question for Tom, this is what we get for inviting a professor and a lecturer. He just answered like 6 of my questions all in one fell swoop. Let's go back a little bit. You earned your master's degree in American history from the Lafayette University.
Oh,
from Purdue University.
I sense antipathy.
And but then your PhD was all of a sudden Latin American history, and you went to the University of Miami, Coral Gables.
Correct.
How did you end up there? And how did you end up deciding to
follow this path?
Yeah.
Boy, is that a story. I did not know what I wanted to do when I grew up, and I still don't. I have no idea what I want to do when I grow up, and I don't want to grow up. But I had a job senior year. I'm engaged to be married, and I had an interview with LS Ayres in Indianapolis, and I got an offer. I was going to sell women's underwear. And I can't really say that I was excited about it. I felt a little bit, one might say, right? I had lots of questions from my wife, and she had a similar number of questions. Second semester of my senior year, I'm walking across campus, and I noticed this poster on the wall, and it's about the mola, which is artwork done by the Kuna Indian Nation that I lived with for 14 months in the Darien jungle and in the Caribbean, and I know molas well. I can tell what island the mola's from by the stitching. And I thought, what do these gringos know about my Kuna? So I went and confronted, politely, the curator, and she said, well, why don't you speak to us about it? I said, okay, so I did. And this old historian who scared me approached me, and he said, if you ever want to pursue graduate training in Latin American studies, come see me. And boy, that literally was it. I was within 6 weeks of graduating and living in Indianapolis, selling unmentionable things. I did not study history as an undergraduate student. I didn't like it. And then I fell in love with it when I lived down there and came back and took a class about Latin America. Some of you may have heard the name Rod Woodson. Rod Woodson was a great player for the Pittsburgh Steelers and was at Purdue. And I had a Latin American history class with him, and Mr. Collins walked in obviously animated. The whole football team sitting in the front row, and he said, anybody who got less than a 10 on the exam, get up, and then he used some superlatives that I won't use. He said, leave my class and don't ever come back. And the whole team stood up except for Woodson. He was the smartest person in the class by far. I think that kind of hooked me. Anyway, so I studied U.S. history at the master's level, and in my field, you have to have 2 foreign languages in addition to your native language. So I studied Latin American history, Latin American economics, Portuguese, Spanish, and that's how I ended up where I am.
So you didn't start learning Spanish until graduate school?
No, I spoke Spanish. I'm uncomfortable with people saying fluent, but I had lived in Central America for years, doing volunteer service. I literally began to learn Spanish a couple of months after Archbishop Romero was assassinated in El Salvador. I was in a Salvadoran refugee camp, and I speak Spanish to this day like George W. Bush speaks English. I've got this ridiculous hillbilly accent, but Panamanians tolerate it.
Tell us a little bit about the present, first of all, and then maybe we'll go back a few years. You're still teaching at Slippery Rock, which is in Pennsylvania.
Correct.
And how's your life there? You told me something about your property.
Yes, I was commenting on the fact that I'm so proud of my hometown for your interest in and love of history and preserving it. I live on a piece of property that was literally surveyed by George Washington on the march from Pitt to Erie. And we have historical societies, and I do not mean to in any way belittle that, but when I learned about this, and I have a dear, dear friend, Michelle, who is a member of our Hall of Fame, I started paying attention. I started looking to see what is Frankfort doing with this. And it's remarkable. Anyway, life in Pennsylvania is good. Frankfort is home. Pennsylvania is too close to Washington for a variety of reasons.
At school now, when you teach a class, what are you teaching?
It would seem brash to say anything that I want, but my dean, the university gives me a lot of leash. I teach, when I was in graduate school, at Miami, you would TA, and so you would get your chops teaching U.S. history or world history. I told the department chair I never wanted to teach the same class twice. I wanted to teach both ends of U.S. history, both ends of world history. And so at Brigham Young, at Slippery Rock, at the Universidad de Panama, Nicaragua, I've always taught both world and U.S. history surveys, but I teach courses on political violence. I teach an entire course, literally an entire course, on the Kennedy assassination. I teach a course on state-sponsored violence and unrest in the United States. So I kind of have a macabre with, my students who come in from high school, and I want to talk about assassinations and shootings, but the seats always fill up, so the market's still good, right?
So this is about Frankfort High School and being a Frankfort hot dog. How was your time in high school? Were you always a student of history or a good student, or did you need some encouraging like many of us do?
None of the above. I wasn't a good student. I wasn't a bad student. I had a dear friend who taught me how to study. But in Frankfort High School, I learned two things. I learned first from, I would say, Senorita Arian, who the idea of learning a foreign language scared me to death. But I learned that the process of learning begins by figuring out what you don't know, and that requires some humility. But more than that, right now at the university level, there's a lot of talk, and because of my age, I'm usually at the center of the conversation on my campus, but the sage on stage, the university professor that gets up, or the teacher, and does his thing or her thing or their thing for an hour and they're done. It's very frowned upon now. At the university level, at least in the East. When I was in Frankfort High School, I had teachers that actually believed in me and saw potential in me that I didn't see in myself. And I don't have words in any language to express how much I appreciate that. But the combination of literally interacting with teachers, seeing that they believed that I was capable of something, and then the people that I I loved, that I went to school with. It's my alma mater. I mean, literally, when I think of where I'm from and the work that I've done for the poor in Central America, for example, or Presidential Archives, it isn't because I have letters behind my name. It's because I watched people be so kind and so loving that, anyway.
Great. I'm going to move on now. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
We're going to move now to our honorary inductee. No, yeah, go ahead. Tom made my job easy. We're going to hear from our honorary inductee into the Hall of Fame, Janet Priest. An honorary inductee is someone who did not graduate from Frankfort High School, but through their efforts and dedication on behalf of the school, have earned the right to be called a hot dog. Janet Priest earned both her bachelor's and master's degrees in music education from Butler University and taught orchestra at Frankfort High School for 40 years. Please welcome a familiar face, Janet Priest.
Thank you. Well, I see a lot of familiar faces out here. After 40 years, we were just talking. When people were coming in, we just have to say, I know that face, but who is that? It's been a long time, but oh my gosh, this is just such a surprise for me. I will tell you that my husband is here, and he made me make a cheat sheet because he says, I know you, and you will continue to go on and on and on. So I may be looking at my sheet here, but I'm thrilled to be here. And you know, Mike was going to ask me about, I did graduate from Lafayette Jeffs. That was my alma mater, but I quickly became a hot dog. After I left Frankfort and went to Jeff, it took me a while to get used to being a Bronco because I had been for 40 years the blue and white. So my kids, this is no joke, and I know you've heard this before, but my kids could not believe that the hot dog was actually a real thing. Is this a mascot? I had a lot of laughter, so I wore my blue and white to school several times, proudly, while they were wearing their red and their black, and just to show them that this is a real thing, just to show them. But I loved being a Bronco, too, because that was my home. It was, what a gift to be able to come back to your home and teach. I never thought that was going to happen, but I was one of those silly ones that retired and didn't plan. So 2 weeks after I retired from Frankfort, I get a call from my good buddy over at Jeff and says, we have an extra class here. Can you come and teach? So I did that for 8 years, and it was just a gift. I never, ever really left the hot dog land, but I became a Bronco again. So I you know, their motto there is once a Bronco, always a Bronco, and I honestly feel that in my heart, the same for Frankfort, once a hot dog, always a hot dog. And so I feel really fortunate to have two great schools that I get to be a part of. So it's just, what a gift. I mean, you get the best of both worlds. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Which school do you like better, Janet?
I'm looking at, am I wearing blue and white or am I wearing red and black?
Oh,
no,
I'm just
I will tell you, though, honestly, the thing that I, and my teacher friends here that I love seeing, you know what, I thought, you know, Frankfort's got the best kids in the world. There's just nowhere else. That's kind of why I stayed. But when I got to Jeff, it didn't take me long, and Gregel, he's smiling right now. Those kids became my kids, too. It was amazing. So I love them all. And that's what's teaching. Wherever you go, just like Tom, wherever you go, you love them all, and they're all important. And you know, to me, that's a lot of what we do. So.
Did you grow up from a child in Lafayette, Indiana?
Well, I was, and here I'll do a little bit of reading because
you don't have to do reading.
Not
you can
reading,
just
but
talk
I can
to
extemporize a little bit on that. But just so that I don't forget things that I think were really important. That I was born and raised in Lafayette. I'm a homebody. My musical journey actually began in 4th grade, and I started on the flute. Some of you don't know that. Many of you probably don't know that. You thought, wow, okay. Then I switched to violin, Miss Roman, in the 6th grade, and finally ended up playing oboe in the 7th because they needed an oboe in the band. And if you know anything about band, it's an odd instrument. Not many people play it, and you need somebody that has a little bit of background. So I said, okay, I can do that. And my parents also realized that I knew in the 7th grade, because of my teacher, Dick Moulter at Sunnyside, was so influential on me that in the 7th grade, my lane was, boom, I was going to be a music teacher. I mean, so my parents quickly realized that, started me on oboe, realizing that, hey, if she's pretty good at this, I think when I get to college, it paid for itself. Okay, so if you have kids that are good on an instrument, keep them on it, because it will pay for itself. But that was my chosen path. Dick Moulter was a good friend of my father's. My father was a wonderful musician. He was an educator first, a 6th grade teacher and principal in the same building for 38 years. And I remember that when I started at Frankfort, I thought to myself, I'm going to beat him. That was another reason why I stayed. Not that I just love the kids, but that was another reason I stayed. I was going to beat him, and I did by 2 years. So the longevity it lived in our family, but he also said that when you find, and my dad was like this, just all about kids, the community, and making them successful. He says, when you find a good position, a good community, don't look other places. And I see so many young kids now that, and even in the music world and probably a lot of others, that they're moving around just trying to find something better. It's not always better. If you find a good community, he said, stay there and make it work. Be successful and stay there and make it work. So that was really very influential in how I chose to. I went on to Jefferson High School, very heavy into music, took a lot of music classes, everything I could. My high school band director was longtime. We're talking late 60s, early 70s, late 60s, because graduated in 70, but was Carol Copeland, who was very, very influential in the high school band world, did a lot of marching. You probably wouldn't have heard about him at the time, but he was one of the better directors. It was in a lot of music groups, and he and my dad kind of got me on the path to studying privately on the oboe, knowing that was going to be probably my ticket to college if I wanted to go to college, so I worked pretty hard at it. And so I was studying with Malcolm Smith, who was the principal with the Indianapolis Symphony at the time, and so and he also was the instructor at Butler. So that was kind of how I ended up at Butler, and it was a great, easy choice for me. So parents, definitely a guiding light. Mother had a beautiful voice, not technically trained, but just beautiful voice. And I just remember them always, whatever I needed, and it was important, they were there. And they made my life really easy to just drive down that road and know exactly where I was going to go.
You said the oboe kind of led to being at Butler. Was it just because you were good at it, or did you get a scholarship?
Studying with Malcolm, and I did get a scholarship. Oh. That helped, but also that relationship with the teacher. You have a good relationship with a teacher, it's going to help you to be really successful, and that's kind of what happened there.
I'm going to combine a couple of my next questions, but I was curious about the history. When you started at Frankfort, who was the orchestra? Who was the band leader? And then your fellow teachers or maybe administrators who were helpful to you as a young teacher.
So interesting, I graduated from Butler in 74, in May of 74. This was the only job I interviewed for, which I thought was kind of unusual. I'm a homebody. I'm from Lafayette, and I didn't want to go very far, so I thought, I'm going to try it. But it was orchestra, and I was technically a band person. However, I did realize at Butler that I would have a better opportunity if I did my student teaching in both band and orchestra. So normally you will do one or the other. I did both because I thought maybe I would get a job, at least a job. And this is the one that opened up. So I started here, and the summer school, I graduated in May, started in June. And it was a big move for me, but when we started in the fall, and I don't know if some of you that are my longtime colleagues can remember, I had 5 elementary schools: Southside, Woodside, Riley, Lincoln, Kiger. Okay, so 5 elementary schools. I had a 7th and 8th grade at the junior high, which is now down at the jail. I was teaching there. I was. And then high school. then the high school class. So it was a really full schedule, but I loved it because now almost all schools have multiple directors to help with everything. But it was a lot of hard work, but I loved it because you can control and make changes along the way that you need and hire the people that you need to hire. So anyway, we started with, that was a lot of work, but then the schools became Suncrest, and so there were only 2 elementary schools that I had to go to, but then the middle school changed to 6th, 7th, and 8th, so they had a separate class there, and then the high school, depending on enrollment, I would have either 2 or 3 classes out there. So that was definitely a full schedule. I don't remember Sitlali when we were there if we had 2 orchestras at the time. Sometimes we had 3. If we got to 60, because that's all that the room would hold, we would open up that. So that's kind of how I got along with each of these. And along the way, I'm looking here to see if there's, most of you probably, and you'll remember a lot of these performances that we did: typical fall, holiday concert, pops concert, spring concert, solo and ensemble, ISMA contests, big broadcast, fall musical, which Mike and I did many times, graduation. You know, I talk about graduation. You were saying graduating from Frankfort. I almost feel like I graduated 40 times because I got to do graduation 40 times at Frankfort. So, yeah, definitely blessed to have a lot of good things happening. I would say the biggest highlight, I'm kind of going on tangents here, and that's why he said I needed to write things down. Beginning in 1996, I think my biggest, I had so many rewarding things. You know that. All of you know that. So many rewarding things. And it's because of the kids, because of the families, because of the community that's here. And the administration was amazing. And I'll get to those people in a minute. But I just want to say that probably of all the things that we did, and there were a lot of them, our trips to London, 7 times. And was anybody here that did the trip to Paris? Okay, so the one year we branched out and did the trip to Paris. And London will always be, because we did that because that there was not the language barrier for the kids. So one year we we stepped out of our box and went to Paris, and then we took the bullet train down to Monaco, Nice, okay? And then we went, the highlight, was we went over into Cremona to the violin shops where they actually make the Stradivariuses, and they're in these, they made them, but they're in a museum that's armed guards, and each student had an armed guard by them going through this museum. But to have those kids to be able to do that was just, that was probably the highlight of everything that we did. But those trips were amazing because a lot of the kids, myself included, had never even been to an airport, let alone we're going up to Chicago, and we're going to fly over to Heathrow, and then we're going to see all these places over there. So anyway, I would venture to say this is probably the height of my teaching career, with the travel with the opportunities. But teachers along the way, oh, by the way, the math, how many kids have I probably taught in 40 years? I have no idea, but Greg says he's the mathematician. If there were 40 to 50 students, here's the math question for you. And we teach for 40 years, that would be between 2,000 and 2,400 students that we had. And I never said no to kids that wanted to come in late, and I'll mention a couple of them later. So that's probably how many there were. But I never turned anybody down, so we had some kids that would kind of come in a little bit late, and they started late. So thinking back on my early days, superintendents, I'm going with the admin first. Kevin Karras, I was asking, I think Bob Ayers hired me, but I can't remember, in 1974. I can't remember who it was. But I remember Kevin being very supportive. Your husband, John, was in my lane all the time helping me out. He was so wonderful. Kay Antonelli really did a lot of nice things. And I should know I'm missing some people. Middle school principal, Jim Platt, Mike McLaughlin, just always just so helpful, so supportive. And my first band colleague was Eric Wainscott. Does anybody remember Eric? Just a jewel of a person, and I could not have hired a better mentor. Just taught me humility, professionalism, kindness, respect. That was a gift. That was a gift to have him as he was probably my main one. I will say along the way, because I was an oboist, teaching strings is not the same. There are a lot of things that you need help with. It's not what I learned in band. I learned it in string tech classes, but I quickly reached out to my string friends, and over the course of the years, I can't remember how many we've had, lots of string players. And this was amazing to me because here's this little, not a little, but pretty little school in the middle of practically nowhere. And we have people coming from the Indianapolis Symphony coming to teach our students. These private teachers would come one day a week, but come in to teach, and from Lafayette, from Purdue, just big name people that would come in and do this. And it was just pretty amazing. I will tell you that that is the backbone of, for me, because I was not necessarily a string person. I could teach the music, the notes, the rhythms, but that was not necessarily my strength. And so our private teachers are the ones that really were the backbone of this program. I just can't say that enough. But in terms of high school, Mike, I would say Rhonda Gabbard, middle school, Carol Downs, these are people I taught with for so long, and Max Blessing, Terry Pletch, my dear English department head, was always there for me. And right now I would have to say Jason Hutton, we go back a long way. We have a long history. When he first started teaching at Frankfort several years, then he went to San Diego for 10 years. Then he came back to be with family, and he actually married one of my former students, cello students, after she got out of high school. And so he's been like a son to me, and it's been a gift for me to be able to. I'm still kind of helping him out when he lets me come in, so it's been great. I've loved it. And theatrically, Marty Henderson and you, Mike, and Michael Taylor are just the highlight of professionalism. We have a theater department in Frankfort that just is second to none because of people like you. So
Thank you.
Those were kind of the backbone of helping me out to get going.
Okay, I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit. Any last thoughts? Were you surprised being inducted, being invited to join the Hall of Fame? And any last thoughts before we move along?
I just want to thank my husband, Greg. I forgot to thank him because he's been very, very important. Not only as a teaching aide, but he's doing all of our, he's doing all of the repair work now for Frankfort and Jeff, which has been amazing. But anyway, I would not have expected this. But it's amazing honor. The number of kids, the quality of kids, the families, the administration. It's been a blessing. My life has been blessed. I don't know how else to say that. But that's, to me, is the bottom line of, and to be here and to have somebody thank you for what you love doing. It's kind of fun. Yeah. It's
Great.
good. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and congratulations. That's Janet. You can thank her. I have a few more questions for the guys about the whole deal coming up Friday and Saturday. Craig, how can golfers find out about this alumni scramble if they've never heard of this event?
Well, the easiest way to remember it is it's always the Friday of the Hot Dog Festival, which is always going to be at the latter part of July. We go through the various routes to publicize this via school, media, Facebook, local media here in town, and we usually start promoting it somewhere in April or May.
Is there a website? Where do people go to find this
Well,
so-called golf
the
tournament?
Frankfort Commons does a really good job of promoting all their golf tournaments, and you can go to frankfortcommons.com, and they give a list of all the events going on, and then now it's kind of word of mouth. So many people have played, so.
Okay, thanks. Don, two more members, aside from these two, are being inducted. You want to mention them briefly?
Very briefly, just because they'll have their chance tomorrow, but Dr. Robert Carnahan, class of 78. Dr. Carnahan is a professor of pediatric disease, something or other. Don't ask me all of this, at Vanderbilt University. He also was a co-sponsor of the COVID vaccine founding. quite the accomplishment. Other is Larry McCoy, class of 1955. And Larry was active in radio and news writing for United UPI, ABC, CBS. He's also published 4 books, one primarily, I think I'd say, about Frankfort, but a very distinguished career in radio news writing. And then we have one other that you'll touch on, Mike.
Oh, Craig, I was going to ask him to touch on that. Talk about the Special Recognition Award, will you? Oh, and also Dr. Robert Carnahan, class of 1989, I believe.
89, 7, 8? I thought it was 78.
We'll wrestle about it later, but
well,
I think he's 89.
I'll go with you with 89 because my memory is what I said. I'll think about it at midnight tonight.
Craig?
Our special recognition, which is the first time we've had a special recognition, is going to honor the 1925 Frankfort State basketball champions. And this kind of came about. Wilbur Cummins was recently inducted into the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. He happened to be a member of this team, and we were just discussing after one of our meetings that, hey, 2025, that's going to be the 100-year anniversary of our first state champions. So we got together and decided we would have a special recognition for the team. And John Milholland, who's also a member of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, got a hold of the executive director, Matt Miller, and he is graciously offered to come up here and speak on behalf of the 1925 champions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Craig. Thanks, Don. Now it's your chance. If anybody out here has a question for anyone up here, you can ask it, but we have a rule. Because it's on YouTube, we need you to ask it into a microphone. Well, we're lucky enough to have the best microphone bringer in the state of Indiana here. So if you have a question, just raise your hand, and the fabulous Melinda Beth Emsweiler, the library record holder in the 100-meter dash, and a member of the Frankfort High School class of 1985, will fly like Tinkerbell to your side, only, with a microphone instead of a wand. So, are you ready, Mindy?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, anybody, questions? We have an enthusiastic question asker. That's not exactly flying, but she's doing her best.
Thanks. Is it on? This is not a question, Janet, but it is for you. As I sat here and I listened to you talk and tell about all the schools you worked at while you were tenured with us, I remember back many, many years ago. I was teaching special education at that time at Kiger Elementary. You came down with your orchestra and you put on a concert for Christmas, and the kids sat there and listened. Went back into the room, and I had a student that came up to me and he said, "How does she get all that music out of that thing she twirls around?" Just saying, you were impressive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Question for anybody? We have a question right over here, Mindy. Mindy's like, why is it always on the other side of the room? Why can't there be two people together?
I have a question for Tom Pearcy. Did you ever get an extra base hit off a pitcher that threw you a curveball? Okay, I thought so.
Anybody else? Okay, well then let's wrap this up. Thanks to our guests tonight, Don Rusk, Craig Mundell, Dr. Tom Pearcy, and Janet Priest. Past Hoosier Storytellers are archived on the library website. Just go to myfcpl.org, click on e-resources, and then Hoosier Storytellers. Daniel Robertson in the booth, Mindy with the microphone, and I will return on August 14th to learn about the history and recent resurrection of Glover's Ice Cream of Frankfort. Hoosier Storytellers is a presentation of the Frankfort Community Public Library.
To the sea